I'd say do it. Just do it. There's an opportunity. I feel there's opportunities for chefs to move to the country, to get out of the rat race and make the regional areas stronger. Yeah, like there's opportunities out there, guys. Like, young chefs, you don't need to be in the big smoke.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. The regional areas are booming. With more people travelling throughout Australia, the need for quality hospitality staff in the regions has never been more pressing. The lure to escape the big smoke has become apparent as professionals look to find balance between the frenetic nature of the restaurant game and a happy, fulfilling life. For some, that lure and desire of the countryside reaches way back into their childhood. Colin Selwood is the chef and owner of The Cottage in Scone, New South Wales. Colin, how are you going?
Hi, mate. I'm good.
Mate, you grew up amongst farmland on the South Island of New Zealand, and now you find yourself in regional New South Wales, carving out your career. Did you ever think leaving that environment as a kid that you'd end up in the country again?
Well, I kind of figured I'd always end up back home in New Zealand, but not in the bush here in Australia. I got married and I've got a wife and kid here in Australia now, and I think if I wanted to go back to New Zealand, it'd be on my own. So.
Well, I know that you spent the vast majority of your career in the city, and we can go into some of the amazing venues that you've been part of. But now you find yourself in Scone, and you were hunting early this morning. Is that right?
Yeah, I was.
Can you tell us a bit about that? What were you hunting for?
Deer. A lot of Kiwis are pretty crazy deer hunters, and that's what I love. It's kind of like the way I tell people about it. It's if you're in the city, you kind of your day off is at the golf course, or sailing club, or something like that, and here in the bush, I've got my hunting, so I kind of I do that on my days off, and it's good. It's a form of exercise, and it's really good. I love it so much.
Is there anything that you end up on the menu?
Not at the restaurant. I'm not allowed, unfortunately, to do that. But it's always on the dinner table at home.
Well, you are in Scone at the moment, but you spend a lot of time in the city with a lot of venues. What drove that move originally out into the countryside?
I just wanted to get out of Sydney, out of Sydney, the city. It was a move that I wanted to do because I was sick of the rat race and everything that comes with living in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. It was a bit of I got bit by the black dog, and I just thought a move to the country will be a little bit more holistic for me, and hopefully it was going to provide a bit more of a balance for me.
Long before the cottage, you moved to the town of Willow Tree in 2010 to open an establishment. Was that the beginning of that sort of change that you went through?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a really good thing for me moving to Willow Tree. I set up a pub there, and what I did was I actually was able to do something that I'd spent a bit of time trying to focus on while I was in Sydney when I was during the 90s. I worked in a restaurant called Armstrong's in North Sydney, which a number of people will probably remember. And that's where we started to dry age. Mark started to dry age meat, and I was part of that process, which I found very, very interesting. So we did that there. That was part of the the way that we did things over there was the owner of the hotel, the pub, Charles Hanna. He he had a farm, and there was a small feedlot with the farm that he had, and what we used to do is we used to get cuts of meat and hang them in the dry aging room in the in the pub.
You eventually left that venue and went back to Melbourne for a short period of time, but you weren't in the city for long. Can you tell us about what it was like that period of time and that sort of decision that you made to go to Scone?
Yeah, well, it was just that was kind of like it was a bit of a I don't know, kind of forced to a certain degree to move away from Melbourne because my wife said to me, "We don't see you. You work too hard, um, and we're actually going to leave, and you can you can come with us if you want, or you can stay here and kill yourself." So yeah, I didn't have much choice really. So yeah, that was a I guess you could say it was a small time that I was down there, and then I hadn't been there for very long, and a lovely man called Michael Crouch called me and said, "Listen, I'm opening I've bought a building, and I'm opening a restaurant, and I, I'm looking for someone to run it." And that was the beginning of moving to Scone.
Well, now you're the owner there. Tell us a bit about the restaurant and what it's like in that area.
Okay, so what we've done here is the Upper Hunter Valley. It's a very regional area, and what I've done is I've put a dry aging room in the restaurant, well, at the restaurant, and we hang our own beef. I get my beef from Manning Valley. Manning Valley Naturally is a label. It comes from the abattoir at Wingham, and it hangs in my dry aging room for around 3 weeks before a minimum of 3 weeks before I cut into it. It's not. It's a grass-fed product, and it's a hormone-free product, and it's not breed specific, but it's all British breeds. So farmers that sign up to this Manning Valley Naturally label, they all sign a piece of paper saying that their beef is 100% British. So it can be a cross, it can be anything, but it's a British breed. There's no Euro in it. So it can be Hereford, Angus, Shorthorn. It can be crosses of any of that kind of stuff, and it's all grass fed. So it a lot of it comes through with it's an older animal as well, and it can come through with a really good marble score. And because it's an older animal, it gets to grow and gain that the marbling through the meat, which is what we're after because it adds moisture and flavour to the meat.
What's it been like building the restaurant in Scone? Can you give us a sense of the community and the importance that they have in regards to your success?
The community here is very important for me because it's a small town, really. So it's really important that the community support me, and I do believe I've been doing a halfway decent job, and I've been busy enough. Did have 3 years of no rain, which became really quite hard. It was very hard actually. So you know, went through a little bit of hardship and lower numbers, but we're coming out of the, this is quite funny. We're coming out of the weeds now. We're coming out of the hardship. It's rained and there's just grass everywhere. It's just incredible. So it's an important thing that I'm trying to do here is a bit of providence with our food, and it's kind of a little bit hard. It's not like the Barossa or the Yarra Valley and places like that where there's lots of little like hobby farms and that kind of stuff where people are able to produce stuff and provide restaurants with it. Up here, farms are larger. They're much larger, and I've been trying to get some more local ingredients. There's a rabbit farm in Merriwa, and there's a pig farm in Merriwa, which I've been using. And there's the local meat that I'm using from Manning Valley naturally. But yeah, there's not much in the way of fruit and vegetables, unfortunately. We do go up to the Barringtons and collect our own pine mushrooms and slippery jacks and that kind of stuff. The Barringtons are an amazing area, but it's just, unfortunately, it's just, it's very vast.
You've been involved in many famous restaurants and also started some of them as well. What's your cooking like, though, these days at the cottage?
Um, we're trying, well, as I said, we're trying to do a bit of Provenance stuff. We're trying to do a bit of gatherer kind of stuff. I have just taken on a new chef, Ben Haywood, who is out of China Doll, and just recently a restaurant called Chew in Western Sydney. Um, but it's I'm trying to take a little bit of a step back. I'm kind of like 3 years off 60, and it's quite funny because I was listening to one of your podcasts earlier, and it was Andy Davies. We actually worked together at the Bayswater Brasserie in 1986, which is quite crazy. So yeah, like it's been an interesting period, and I'm trying to focus here on everything that I've taken on and learned over the last 30 years living in Sydney.
You briefly mentioned Armstrong's and Bayswater Brasserie. You started your career in New Zealand, but can you tell us a bit about your time in some of the restaurants in Sydney and your influence there?
Yeah, well, okay. So after doing my apprenticeship in New Zealand, I came over here in 1986. My first job my first job in Sydney was at the Bayswater Brasserie, which was, like as Andy said, it was a place to be. It was pumping. You'd do 300 covers a day, and boy, what an eye opener! I was fresh off the plane from New Zealand, and I walked straight into that, and there was famous people walking in the door left, right, and centre, and it was like, wow. Um, there was a mad chef called Willie Wild. He was a chef there, and from there, I worked with Greg Doyle and Steve Hodges when they had a little place called Riley Street Bistro. Now that was part of the. There was a number of chefs had nice fine dining restaurants through the 80s there, and they weren't travelling so well, so they decided to open up quicker food venues like Riley Street Bistro, Macleay Street Bistro, and places like that. Then, after that, it was a stint at Armstrong's in North Sydney where I learnt how to dry age meat. I used to bone out like 20 to 25 rumps a week there, and that was good. And then we had the recession we had to have, didn't we? And thank you, Mr. Keating, for that one. Um, and after that, it was like 5 years at the Bistro Moncur, which was that place just pumped. It was an institution. And then after that, I did a number of years in a restaurant called East Bank. East Bank was at Circular Quay underneath the toaster, and with the owners of East Bank, I actually became a partner in China Doll, and we had China Doll there for a number of years, and then sold that share, and then opened a restaurant called Salon Blanc. Got a hat at Salon Blanc, and that was the period where the black dog hit. Um, and if you wanted touch on that for a minute, it's one of those things that unfortunately chefs tend to go through quite a bit. I've lost four friends to that, and one farmer as well. Farmer was last year. So, I'd just like to say one thing too while we're on that one is like if you're feeling like shit, just talk to somebody. Reach out, talk to somebody because there's always a friend that will want to help. Um, so, yeah.
You've mentioned the black dog, the depression, and how it's popped up at random times in your career, and you've lost so many people close to you. How have you managed that with such a frenetic industry that you're in that takes a toll on people? What's been some of the things that have helped you?
Just see someone, talk to somebody. That's all I can say. It's important. You got to reach out, put your hand up, say, "Hey, I'm not coping too well." Um, and there's help out there. There's help everywhere. You just got to be brave and stick your hand up.
Your move to the country has helped you obtain a more of a sort of work-life balance. How do you feel as a chef now in the country compared to those days in the city where there was such pressures on you, especially chasing hats and those sort of things?
There's still pressure here, business business pressure. But the one good thing that I can say about the country is a lot of people will see here also in Scone. We've got the horse industry and the thoroughbred industry. They used to seeing having like a lot of them. A lot of the people here will have a house in the eastern suburbs or the lower North Shore. They do no dining, and they a lot of them are really happy to actually have a nice restaurant in town. So um, people tend to be a little bit more grateful in the country than rather than criticising, um, which that I just love it. It's so good because I used to finish up in the kitchen and toward the end of service, and then walk out and walk around the restaurant and say g'day to people, and people were just saying like, "Oh, dinner was so great. Dinner was so great. Thank you very much." And that's the big thing that I find in the country is there's more gratification. There's more gratification with the hard work that you do, and people, rather than being like, as a chef, one of the largest issues or big things that we have is we're eternally criticized, and that's kind of it's part of it's become worse more lately, but that just seems to be the way it is, and you've got to have a thick skin. But here in the country, I just find customers are a bit more grateful, and it's kind of like, yeah, nicer to have people around.
Regional dining has really changed in the last decade, and you've been part of that. What do you think of the standard of regional dining across the country?
It's a lot harder in the regions. Finding staff is harder, and I do believe it's becoming stronger, and it's there's more people that are appreciating it. Like, for example, here in town, the real estate agents, since COVID hit, the real estate agents, they cannot get enough properties to sell, and there's people leaving Sydney or the cities in their droves since COVID. So um, it's becoming stronger, and regional dining is becoming stronger, and it's becoming more recognised. I do believe. We've got the Hunter wine region, just like it's 2 hours south of us, and that's always busy, and that they have been so busy since COVID hit. They're booked out weeks in advance. And we've got people here, as I said, they're buying up properties because they just want to get out of Sydney. A lot of people have been forced to work from home, and then they've realised that you know what, working from home's doable. So they're going like, why should we bust in our guts here in the city, traveling for hours and hours in our cars when we can just move something? Like I can park just about right outside the shop I want to go to here in town, and that's the bit I love. And not only that, like I grew up in the country, and like I was, shooting rabbits when I was a teenager and riding motorbikes and doing all that kind of stuff. And that's what I can now offer my son. And that's the big thing for me is being able to offer he's 11 and he's got a motorbike. He's a crack shot with a little 22. um, and yeah, that's how I grew up, and I'm really happy that I can offer that to him.
Global travel is not really an option for anyone at the moment, given the pandemic, which you've brought up a couple of times. But you are a real avid traveller, and you've had some extraordinary experiences, food experiences across the globe. Are there some that really stand out for you that you'd love to experience again once sort of borders open up?
I guess, yeah. Like going through France and that kind of stuff was pretty incredible. But I think the most memorable for me was when I went to Thomas Keller's restaurant in New York.
Per se.
Per se, yeah, per se. We went there. It was amazing. It was incredible. Like there was three of us. We went for dinner there, and like I couldn't fault a single thing. And the service was just amazing. Like there'd be three waiters. They'd hang back, stand at the waiter station, and then they'd just go, vroom, and table would be cleared, table would be set. It happened. It was so unobtrusive. It was just incredible, and the food was just amazing. And the funny thing is, like, it was a bit of a surprise trip to New York, and I walked in there and said to the girl at the front desk, I said, "Listen, I'm a chef from Sydney, and we've just had a quick surprise trip to New York, and I'm here anytime that you can squeeze me in. I'd love a table." And she goes like, "Oh yeah, we can do Thursday dinner. How's that?" I said, "Oh, fantastic! Thank you so much." And she said, "Whereabouts in Australia from?" I said, "I'm from Sydney." She goes, "Oh really? I'm from Cronulla." So yeah, that was really good, and yeah, that will be, I think, probably the most memorable dinner experience ever for me.
You're in the Upper Hunter, and the whole hospitality world over the last year has had it pretty tough. But what's it been like in that region in the last few months over summer? Are you noticing a real change?
Yeah, there's been a big change, I guess, really, as far as farming confidence goes. That's the big thing. Like beef prices are going through the roof, and they're so strong right now. And like if it rains, I just I see people in the restaurant when it rains, and that's because they just it's just farming confidence. That's the kind of thing that happens up here. If it goes dry, then people don't come in to see us, and when there's rain, it changes everything, and everything's so green right now. It's just incredible. But the big thing for us here in Scone is there's like we've just as COVID hit, we got a bypass. So the town is now bypassed by the highway. And a lot of people say to me, "So have you noticed anything? Like, what's the difference now with the bypass?" And I go, "Well, we don't know because the bypass finished, and guess what happened? Bloody COVID hit." So we're a town that's about to grow, and I think where your brother is cooking down near Canberra. Um, there's bypasses gone in towns down that way as well, and they've flourished because people go into them and they off the highway, and then they actually when they go into them off the highway, spend time in towns instead of just going straight through them. And hopefully this will provide some more employment opportunities for our town, and more support for local businesses in hospitality, retail, and all that kind of stuff.
With your experience of finding that work-life balance and having a restaurant in the country, what sort of advice would you give to those in the industry looking to get out of the big smoke and make a career in the country?
I'd say do it. Just do it. Like there's an opportunity. I feel there's opportunities for chefs to move to the country, to get out of the rat race and make the regional areas stronger. You know, I think there's a big push. There's advertising on TV right now, and everything to get out and visit regional areas, because no one can go overseas. But like, it's kind of like a little bit like a blessing in disguise to a certain degree. You know, so yeah, like there's opportunities out there, guys. Like, you know, young chefs. You don't need to be in the big smoke. And you know, like what we've done here is like we've won multiple awards through the Restaurant and Catering Association. We've won best regional steak restaurant like about 4 years in a row, and I wouldn't say that like our food's great. It's really good, but it's not. It's not kind of what, how can I say it? It's really good, wholesome dining, and it's not cutting edge stuff. And people don't need or want cutting edge stuff in the country. They're just really good. They're really happy for good, wholesome, well cooked meals. You know, and it's not hard to do.
Well, Colin, it sounds like some exciting times ahead in Scone with all the developments and also with a lot of regional tourism going on. Look forward to hearing more about that as time goes by. We've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds today. Please keep in touch, and we'll talk again soon.
Hey, thanks for inviting me in. I feel quite privileged to actually be part of your little program here, mate. It's fantastic. It's a wonderful thing you're doing.
Thank you, mate. We've loved having you on. We'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Anthony. See you, mate.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.